I think I speak on behalf of many Chelsea fans when I say that we are very excited for the league to come back. Not only because we've missed football for so long, but because now we actually have a team that can go on and win actual trophies and titles. And that's not to say that we had a bad season by any means. I think we actually did pretty well for the circumstances that we had last season. There were many encumbrances present at the beginning of last season where we had just lost our best player and we had a transfer ban placed on us that restricted us from buying any new players or helping us shape and develop a new team. So when you consider all the bad things that were against us last season, you have to give credit to Lampard for not only keeping us on our feet, but also giving us a chance of reaching top four, which was inconceivable to many Chelsea fans at the time. Coming from a Chelsea fan who was there since match day 1 of last season, I wasn't very optimistic that we were actually going to accomplish anything this season, much less actually get into Europe and not even compete for any trophies or not even do anything this season, to be honest. Despite bringing back players like Mason Mount and Tammy Abraham back to Chelsea from loan, I think what the first few games really indicated to me was that this was going to be a very awkward season in terms of us not necessarily competing for anything, but we weren't also going to do very bad. Like, it was just a very lukewarm season if you consider that we weren't exactly competing for anything else. We weren't in the lines, or no one actually placed any faith in us to actually go and do anything. I think what many people believed, including us Chelsea fans, was that we weren't going to finish in the top four. There were just too many things against us. We didn't really have a new team set up so that they can go on and do great things. We had just brought an influx of academy players who never really made a name for themselves at Chelsea. And we had a new manager who, while he is a club legend, many people couldn't help but doubt whether he was the right man for the job or not. Looking back at the season, however, and this is something that many people might disagree with, is that last season was a success in my eyes, to say the least. We were a team that barely made any signings, had an inexperienced manager, and yet we still were able to get top four at the end of the season. And what these new, young players did was that they brought energy and excitement to the club, which wouldn't be present if we had just bought anyone else from the transfer market. Those were ultimately the players that gave us any chance of doing well in the league last season, and combining that with the players that we already had like Mateo Kovacic, it really gave Chelsea a new type of vibe that all the fans were very excited for. Now, while the two biggest accomplishments of last season were the youth players that just came to the club and the rising talent within our own team like Kovacic, Pulisic, and even Willian, it goes without saying that the negatives of last season are still going to be a big issue that's going to come into this season. I think everyone already knows what I'm going to say, so I'm just going to go out and say it. Our defense is kind of trash. Like, I know we brought no defenders in from the transfer market, but you'd expect to see the bare minimum from a group of professionals at a club like Chelsea, nonetheless, to at least be able to defend properly week in and week out, but that just wasn't the case most of the time. I can't even begin to count the amount of times that the defense made me wanted to just turn off the TV and just yell out to the heavens, why does this team not have a proper defense? Even when Rudiger came to join the defense later in the season, it turned out he was more of a burden than he was a savior for us. Him, along with Zuma and Christensen, they were the biggest troublemakers in our defense, and I feel like if we just had proper center backs, we wouldn't concede nearly as much as we did last season. Defensive errors in games against Bournemouth, Southampton, and even after the restart against West Ham, those were the only reasons that we actually went and lost the game, even though I feel like in those games in particular, those were often the worst times we actually performed. And the reason why I'm focusing so much on the defense issue is this is going to be the thing that hinders us so much in the season, and it will really determine whether we are going to actually compete for the title or we're just going to try to survive and find a top four place. Forget about the attack, alright. We have an amazing attack for next season, and it's really going to be a joy for many Chelsea fans to see what the likes of Werner, Ziyech, and Havertz could bring to this new Chelsea team. But the main concern for next season is really going to be the defense and whether or not we can fully repair it so then we can still manage to not concede as many goals as we did last season. I think the signings of Thiago Silva and Ben Chilwell will really alleviate the problems that we have at the back. But for the most part, this is really going to be a challenge that we are going to have to face throughout the season. And it's really going to be up to what our players are capable of in the defense as to whether or not this is going to be a problem that's going to be fixed early on in the season, or it's going to be persistent throughout all the games that we play, just like how it was last season. So now that we've already gone over all of the triumphs and flaws of last season, we can finally see how the new and the old players could work together to really make the dream team that Chelsea fans have been waiting for so long. Now this part's tricky because not only did we realize from last season that we have very good and dependable players from the academy to rely on, but we've just gone and bought some of the best players from all across Europe to join this Chelsea team, and that's really going to make getting a starting spot on this team very competitive. Timo Werner or Tammy Abraham? Hakim Ziyech or Callum Hudson-Odoi? Kai Havertz or Mason Mount? There is just so many options when it comes to who exactly we can play and what exactly is the best link-up. But I think it's obvious that we should always put our strongest team in the starting lineup, so then we can always try to compete at our hardest in each game of the season. Now, while Tammy Abraham did very well last season for Chelsea, I think Timo's services are really needed in order to really get our team to the highest level possible. Not only are goals from Timo Werner assured, but we can also rely on his fast pace and his vast knowledge of the game in order to do things that Tammy Abraham couldn't do, including things like making runs and always striking back, because I feel like that was a big problem when it came to Tammy Abraham. Tammy was always very good at beating defenders and always finding the back of the net, but I think with Timo Werner you get versatility when it comes to attacking, because other than being able to score goals, there really isn't much to Tammy's game. No offense to Tammy, of course. Because when Tammy's having a bad day and whenever midfield can't find a way to give him the ball, I feel like Tammy sometimes does become a little bit useless, only because he really hasn't developed that part of the game where he's always got to try to make himself involved, even though he can't really get the ball and he can't really expect to get the ball all the time. I feel like that's a big issue when it comes to Tammy Abraham, and it really is just going to depend on whether or not he can really fix that in the future. Otherwise, it looks like Timo Werner might have a spot over Tammy Abraham. But I really want to see Tammy Abraham do well this season, because I know he's an excellent striker. He just needs to develop certain parts of his game more, and I really want him to prove the doubters wrong, because it already seems like many fans have already forgotten how good Tammy Abraham is, and hopefully he can show that this season. Now, while I can talk about how Hakim Ziyech may bench Callum Hudson-Odoi or how Kai Havertz might bench Werner, it really all depends to Frank Lampard, but I really do expect our new signings to be in the starting lineup in the first game against Brighton. So, taking everything of what I just said, what exactly are our goals for this season? What is it that many Chelsea fans expect from an exciting team like this? And if we don't win the league or get far into the Champions League, is Lampard's job really up for debate? Now, to start off, I think many Chelsea fans are expecting Chelsea to do really well this season, particularly in the Premier League. I think it's been long overdue that Chelsea go on and win a Premier League, considering that it's almost been nearly 4 years since we've actually won a Premier League. Gosh, that actually makes me feel really old and sad. But even if we don't win the league, as long as we are competing in Europe in the Champions League, I feel like that's a good sign for many things that's going to happen later on in the future. Now, I think what many people are forgetting is that this is only the first season where all these new players are going to be in the club, so it's not like there's any pressure to go on and win anything right now, but there definitely is going to be pressure to win something in the future. But for this season in particular, no, there's not necessarily any reason to expect Chelsea to win the Premier League, the Champions League, or really any type of cup, although it would be very nice to win and lift the trophy. But I think the case is that many Chelsea fans are on this hype train, and they're expecting Ziyech, Werner, Pulisic, Havertz to have breakout seasons and to go on and possibly win the Champions League or the Premier League for Chelsea. Being a Chelsea fan for so long, however, I've noticed that we aren't necessarily guaranteed silverware whenever we have the best team at our side. When I say that, I'm mainly thinking about the 2016-2017 team that we had, where we had Willian, Costa, Hazard, and Courtois all in our team, and I think Fabregas was also in that team. Yeah, he was. Those players all in one team showed me, and I still believe this to this day, the best Chelsea team that we've ever had. We were dominating the Prem, we had won the Prem, and we were expected to do very well in the Champions League next season. But when it came to the Champions League, it really wasn't that impressive considering that we got knocked out in the round of 16. And other than that, we really didn't do anything else that season. I think we did pretty poorly that season because that was the same season that Antonio Conte ended up getting sacked. So when I'm looking at this new team, which is really giving me vibes of the 2016-2017 Chelsea team, I think we have to be very patient with these players and not necessarily expect silverware to come right away. To be honest, it's probably going to be a year or two until we win either the Premier League or the Champions League, but I'm expecting us to immediately do well in both of those competitions. But the goal is visible for Chelsea, in which we can actually win the Premier League this season, and we can possibly win the Champions League. I don't know, but I am very ambitious, and I am very excited and hopeful for this new awaited Chelsea team. Now, while this video has mostly been a season preview on the upcoming season that we have, I'm going to try to talk about the Brighton v Chelsea game in this little short segment at the end of the video. Even though we might not be able to rely on Ben Chilwell and Thiago Silva for this Brighton match, I'm still expecting Christian Pulisic, Werner, and Kai Havertz, but not Hakim Ziyech because it's pretty much confirmed that he's injured for the game. I'm expecting them to do very well in this game and to bag in as many goals as possible. For this game, I'm expecting us to play a 4-2-3-1 formation despite not having all the players that we want to play in this formation. My predicted lineup from back to front will consist of Kepa as goalkeeper, Marcus Alonso as left back, Azpilicueta as right back, Zuma and Rudiger as our center backs, Conte and Jorginho playing as that pivot, Kai Havertz as cam, Christian Pulisic on the left, Timo Werner as striker, and Callum Hudson-Odoi on the right. I'm expecting great things from this game, but unfortunately I might not be able to watch the entire game. I feel like I'm going to miss a majority of the first half, so hopefully I can watch some of the game to get a deep analysis on what exactly happened in the game, and maybe I'll give you guys a post-match reaction if lucky. And the delusional Chelsea fan within me tells me that Chelsea are going to win 3-1 against Brighton, a Timo Werner hat-trick, and I really hope that our defense only concedes 1 goal in this game. But that's going to wrap it up for today, guys. Hopefully you guys liked the video. Let me know in the comments if you guys would like to suggest any other types of videos that I can do in the future. Like, comment, and subscribe to your local blue. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.